Hello, I'm Tony, and we are back in the point and click world of the mini games, with City Legends Trapped in Mirror, and the collector's edition no less, which is free from Prime Gaming until the 2nd of May 2023, and it's downloaded via the Legacy Games Store, not the Amazon launcher. This is the same type of game as Word of Law and the Family Mysteries games. A point and click adventure game that follows a protagonist through a pretty strange tale, figuring things out by solving logic puzzles, finding hidden objects, and clicking objects on objects. If you haven't seen my reviews for those games, let me explain what this is all about. First thing to talk about is the difficulty settings, since this greatly influences everything else I'm going to discuss, and is actually a notable change from previous games. You get the choice between the standard 3 difficulty settings: Casual, Advanced and Hardcore, plus the new Custom mode. Custom mode contains all of the changes each difficulty level can apply, but in a pick and mix way, allowing you to tailor your game as easy or difficult as you want. And you can make it really difficult. Turning off all indicators for areas of interest and clickable stuff, and no hints would make this game 10 times harder. I guess you'd get your money's worth, though you might end up tearing all your hair out. This ability to tailor the game is great. Good job. Let's talk about the graphics and sound. This is the weakest part of the game. The majority of the graphics shown are static screens with various areas of interest and clickable items somewhat blending into the background, depending on your difficulty choice settings. If you leave the area indicators on, places you have a puzzle that needs to be solved have a helpful sparkle to them, and the cursor changes as you mouse over them. If they're off, they blend into the rest of the scene. The static scenes look alright, they have enough detail that you know what everything's supposed to be. Things are a little bit different with the animation though, particularly with the characters. These don't look great, and the animations are a bit cheap looking. The facial animations when someone speaks are awful.
The power went out unexpectedly, and I can't seem to locate Henry, our security guard.
No effort has really been made to match the speech you hear, and it can actually come across as pretty creepy. The voice acting isn't very good either. The performances are generally rather flat and unengaging.
And then well, I suppose she tried to drain my vital energy, so I lost consciousness.
I mostly read the subtitles and clicked through to avoid hearing all of the voiceover. I know this sounds like I'm bashing the game, I kind of am, but the fact is, the graphics and sound aren't really the selling point of the game. The puzzles are. So their deficiencies don't really hurt the experience. Let's talk about those puzzles. As usual, these are split between the normal fetch quest style puzzles, the logic puzzles, and the hidden object puzzles. The fetch quest ones are the standard need an object to get an object chain, with a fair number of the uses you put objects to being baffling and unintuitive, unless you've had experience with these games. Need to take some nails out of something? You're using a comb, right? As you do in normal life. This weird usage of items isn't as bad as prior games. There is a bit more logic to most of them, but I was still really surprised a couple of times at some weird combinations of items that worked. There always seems to be a bunch of these puzzles that need to be solved at any one time, a lot of outstanding puzzles. And you end up with quite a lot of objects in your inventory that don't seem immediately helpful, and might not be for some time. I think my experience with these games is serving me well with this one. And since the game carefully controls the objects you get, if you get stuck, trial and error is a valid option. The logic puzzles are my favourite part of this game. There are quite a few I've not seen before, and on hard difficulty mode are satisfyingly challenging. A standout one had me cutting hedges with 3 shears, and it took me quite a while to puzzle it out, with a pleasingly devious and unexpected solution. This is good stuff. I think these took up a large part of the 6 hours my playthrough took. You always get the choice to play a match 3 game rather than playing the logic puzzles, so if they're not your thing, you can pretty much just skip them. The last type of puzzle are hidden objects, with a few different styles of play. You might be searching a scene in one, matching pairs of similar objects. Maybe 2 slightly different stuffed elephant toys, for example. Or you might be trying to find all the objects in a list, some of which need elements added to them before you can tick them off. There's a few twists on this theme which keep them relatively fresh. I only needed to use a hint function on this once, so they aren't that difficult to do with the settings that I had that you could see earlier. Without those pretty helpful settings, this would be so much harder. To the point I don't think I would enjoy it at all. The one time I did use a hint function, I still couldn't make out the object that I clicked on to finish the scene. The hint function is correctly named. In the fetch quest, it highlights the area of the screen you need to interact with. It never tells you what object you need to use in those fetch quests. A big addition to the hidden objects games was a matching one that made the story more a part of this game, rather than the afterthought that it usually is, but it's used as a framework to hang the puzzles on. This game took the form of a book surrounded by pictures where you had to fill out missing words in the text. This meant reading the actual story, which was backstory for a main character, and then figuring out what word fit and clicking the appropriate picture. While it's not like a gripping story, this did bring me into the actual story a fair bit more. I did notice a couple of times where the text did not display properly, and it's a kind of a sign of the lack of care taken with these games. I mean, I have an odd relationship with these games. I can see the issues, the cheap feeling and the rapidly churned out feeling I get, but I always play through them in one sitting on my preferred difficulty, which is just above easy really. In this case, the main game took me 6 hours, as I said, and that includes opting into what appear to be additional areas that aren't part of the main quest line. You actually get a dialogue and a choice whether you want to include it or not, which is cool. As I said, that 6 hours is on relatively easy settings but with hard difficulty logic puzzles. Since it's a collector's edition, there is also another quest line added in, which took me a further couple of hours to complete. Overall, I kind of like this game, particularly the logic puzzles. And for any point and click puzzle fans out there, this is actually an improvement over the games that we've got from Prime Gaming for free in the past. I do think it's worth fans of the genre grabbing this while it's free on Prime. I personally wouldn't pay for it, but I can see it being worth a tenner or so if these games are your thing. Well, I'm going to have to catch up on some sleep since I finished playing this at 5 in the morning, so I'm off. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.